Everything started in that mysterious library. The library was quiet and empty. I was alone there, so I could research comfortably. While browsing the bookshelves, my eye caught an old and dusty volume. It read Tales of Dark Powers. My curiosity got the best of me, and I pulled out the book. As I glanced through its first pages, I realized each story was more terrifying than the other. However, one story was different from the rest. The shadow. The shadow, as the tale went, was a centuries-old curse. It was depicted as a dreadful entity that ruined people's lives in a horrifying way, dragging them into darkness. According to the narrative, when you saw the shadow, you could feel the cold breath of death on your neck. The story narrated that the shadow had last haunted a town. The townsfolk denied its existence and dreaded its terrible power. People stopped walking the streets at night and covered their windows with curtains. No one wanted to see the shadow, but one man fearlessly decided to confront the shadow. He wasn't the first to do so, but he was determined. He had to stop the shadow. At night, the city fell silent. The man began to sense the presence of the shadow. It started as a mere unease, then grew into a shiver, and he saw it. It swirled around the streetlights like a cloud of black smoke. The man took a deep breath and bravely followed the shadow. It led him to the courtyard of an abandoned historic house. Suddenly, the shadow halted and turned around. There was a frozen silence between the two. The shadow enveloped the man in an instant. His entire body quivered with fear, rendered him incapable of screaming. Eventually, the shadow approached him and bent closer to his face. The man disappeared into the shadow. The next day, the man's absence was noticed. Neither his body nor any trace was found. Only an eerie silence prevailed, sending shivers down one's spine. I closed the book in the library and placed it back. After reading the shadow story, I knew I would now live with the terrifying reality of silence, mystery, and the dread of getting lost in the darkness. I would never forget the shadow, and maybe one day, I would feel its cold breath winking at me within the darkness. On a night filled with fear, the rain was still pouring heavily. My name is Michael, and I was standing in front of an old, abandoned house with my friend Lisa. You know those houses, the ones in stories, the ones no one dares to enter. Well, this was one of those houses. However, our curiosity got the best of us, so we decided to explore this eerie place. At first, we were met with silence. The rusty hinges of the door creaked as if in mournful screams. As we stepped inside, the house was dark, and the moonlight only touched the dusty frames on the old walls. As we moved forward cautiously, I saw something shift out of the corner of my eye. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief and looked again, noticing that the door had opened slightly. We distinctly remembered it closing behind us, so we hesitated. Lisa was trembling, her eyes filled with fear, summoning the courage to open the door. I slowly turned the handle. However, the other side of the room was just darkness, and I couldn't make out what lay behind the slightly open door. Upon Lisa's suggestion, we turned on the flashlights on our mobile phones and began to illuminate the haunted interior of the house. What we saw took our breath away. The walls of the house were covered with old photographs. These pictures showed young girls, families, and smiling children. However, each photograph had a red X drawn across it. Lisa and I exchanged a glance, and a shiver ran down our spines when we noticed this strange mark. The room was silent, with only the rain tapping against the roof to be heard. Then, we heard distinct footsteps. We followed the sound of these footsteps echoing in the room. Lisa stood frozen by the window, her eyes red from tears, while I realized the footsteps were coming from behind a door. As we opened the door, a horrifying sight unfolded before our eyes. A group of people, dressed in white like ghosts, surrounded an elderly man. The man's eyes were filled with terror as he dangled in the air from a noose around his neck. While staring at the ceiling slowly, he uttered words that pierced our ears. "Now we are here too." Suddenly, the room's lights came on, and the apparitions vanished. However, at that moment, we realized it was too late to turn back. The doors of the house locked behind us, and the window curtains closed, plunging the room into complete darkness. Since that day, we could neither comprehend what happened nor escape from that cursed house. Perhaps we truly are now among them, and the dreadful screams of that man still echo in our ears. It all began in that old, abandoned psychiatric hospital. The hospital had been unused for years and stood in eerie desolation. A group of friends decided to explore this haunted building. They were a bit nervous, but their curiosity outweighed their fear. As they navigated through the house, their moods quickly shifted. They began to hear sounds, footsteps, whispers, and even eerie moans. But the hospital was supposed to be empty, right? Despite all the legends surrounding it, no one lived there. Then, when they entered a room, they stumbled upon a disturbing sight. On the floor of a bedroom, there was a peculiar pit marked with scratches and fluttering patterns. Inside, there were a handful of feathers and bloodstains. They exchanged fearful glances and decided to unravel this mystery. In the same room, the door of a closet slammed shut and then swung open. Along with a chilling breeze, an elderly woman appeared inside. She was trembling and teary-eyed but wouldn't utter a word. The friends attempted to ask who she was and what she was doing there, but the woman remained silent, trembling. Finally, the unsettling silence in the room was shattered by a horrifying utterance, consisting of only one eerie word: "Run." Terrified, the friends immediately began searching for an exit, but the doors and windows were oddly locked. And inside, the woman was still there, her face smudged like a mask, continuing to cry. One by one, the friends started to disappear. Rooms vanished, corridors elongated, and they were trapped in this haunted hospital. From every room emerged screaming specters, tormented spirits, and dark entities. Finally, one friend was left alone and was dragged into a room by the woman ghost. "You can't escape" was written on the walls, and the doors were locked. The woman ghost's face transformed, now carrying a malevolent grin. And then, Their friend was pulled into an eternal darkness. That evening, the old hospital remained abandoned and silent. Only echoing was the wind's moans and the laughter of ghosts. Yet, those who passed by the hospital would still hear the echoes of those mysterious screams, bone-chilling whispers, and sleepless nights. And those dark echoes would never stop keeping the memory of their lost friends alive.